What's up, YouTube? This is CJ.
And Sarah.
It's a Wednesday night, and it's time for another Keto
Conversations.
Let's get started. Let's begin now. So today we're going to talk about an experiment that we were doing. We did a 2-week...
It was 10 days.
A 10-day carnivore diet experiment. And you might say, well, why'd you do that? And what's
because we wanted to do an N+2, I guess.
Yeah, we just wanted to do it. Nothing. There was no real reason in particular. There
does seem to be a prevalence right now, though, of ketogenic people experimenting with carnivore,
right,
or at least having questions about carnivore.
Right. And it was just that. It was an experiment. We are not trying to advocate that you do carnivore or anything like that. We decided we wanted to try it. And
it's the same with fasting. I fast. I enjoy fasting, but I don't talk about it a lot on here, and I don't advocate it because that's up to you.
We still believe wholeheartedly in keto.
Yep, that is our main way of life.
That is our main way of life, and so carnivore was just an experiment.
It's something to add to your reservoir of choices.
Yeah. Exactly.
Of lifestyle choices.
All right, but we learned, so what we came up with is a list of 5 things.
5 takeaways.
5 takeaways from that carnivore experiment. So, number 1, be conscious.
Extra conscious
of your fat intake. And so what that's all about is so with carnivore, you're eating, I guess maybe we should talk about what carnivore is.
Carnivore is basically where you're eating only things from the animal kingdom. Animal foods and food products. So anything that comes from an animal. So that would be any type of meat. Mm-hmm. We included dairy.
Yeah, we did.
And both of us still kept drinking coffee. Most carnivores consider that
we didn't
an okay...
but we did cut out sweetener. We didn't have any sweetener.
Yep. Yeah. And so anything animal products related. So we continued to eat dairy, eggs, so cheese, cream, all of that, and anything else that is a meat product.
Right. And so the first point about being extra conscious of your fat is, so of course you're eating more protein, and you want to make sure that you have sufficient amount of fat. To kind of counter,
so
counterbalance the right word?
So then it's less of a high protein diet per se, and more in keeping with the ketogenic lifestyle. Is because you've already cut your carbs way down if you're practicing keto.
Right.
You're already, around 20 or less carbs. So you're just taking those a little further out of the way. Some people call carnivore zero carb, but it's not really, because even animal products do have a negligible amount of fat, especially dairy products.
Right.
Or carbs. Excuse me. So, it's not really truly zero carb, but you do have to pay more attention to fat, because if not, then it's more like just a high protein diet, and that can be hard on you, as we'll continue discussing as we go through this discussion.
So point number 2 that we learned, it kind of goes with point number 1, is that if you're going to experiment with carnivore, we suggest that you do some testing beforehand. Testing
your blood glucose, maybe your ketones, just to see. Because a lot of people, their glucose will run, between 60 and 80. And sometimes when you start practicing carnivore, you can get up into the 100 or even, low 100. And, that's considered a little bit higher. And so some people get a little concerned that maybe their blood sugar is going up a little bit, and that can happen when you start eating more protein than what you're used to, because the ketogenic lifestyle is more of a moderate protein lifestyle.
And
and we're not saying that anything is wrong with that, but you won't know your protein threshold. And that was a mistake that we made, is that neither one of us tested our blood glucose before we started. This was kind of an on-the-fly thing. Let's just try it. Let's try it for a week, and we ended up going for 10 days.
For 10 days, right.
And most people who practice the carnivore lifestyle will tell you that you should probably do at least 30 days to get an accurate idea of how your body will react.
So we talked about the testing part of it, but I think it's important that if you're going to do carnivore, that you also commit to tracking your macros.
Right. So, and that will help with that first point that we made,
about
and that you will be more conscious of how much fat you're actually getting in.
Right. And so that's something that we kind of learned as we did the experiment.
Because if you're eating more protein, but you're also eating a significant amount of fat, you're going to lessen the likelihood of maybe some physical issues that we're going to be talking about next.
Right. Number 3, don't be surprised if you get the keto flu.
Because we both did.
Yep, we both did. We got the keto flu.
And neither one of us got the keto flu when we started the ketogenic diet.
Yeah. I'll say I think I may have had a touch of the keto flu with keto flu. But this I know was a keto flu. There was no doubt. There was no doubt.
The brain fog, the tiredness, the moodiness.
Oh
all of those things.
I was super moody, and like I said, I had a little bit of that with keto, but this was definitely
which could also be attributed to some hypoglycemic symptoms because you're raising your protein and you might be having some glucose issues, especially for CJ because he was diabetic before. So he is more sensitive to that.
Right.
For myself, I've never had blood sugar issues, but I did personally feel ketogenic flu symptoms. So
right.
And because you're cutting your carbs like
I mean down to almost not totally zero, but pretty close.
Yeah, and even if you have been doing the ketogenic diet for a while and you have found your carb comfort zone, I think sometimes even people who've been practicing keto for a while, sometimes carbs can creep in.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing, net carbs versus, full carbs and that kind of thing. So I think sometimes, especially if you're not tracking your food, you can maybe be eating more carbs than you think you're eating. So when you take it down to none, then I think sometimes you really realize that maybe you need to be a little bit more aware.
Yeah, and I think that was
a big takeaway for me.
That was a big takeaway, but I think it was a benefit for me because actually I did start tracking more consistently while we were doing carnivore, and it's something I've been continuing to do, since we stopped doing carnivore.
Right.
So, all right.
Which goes along with the next point is that it can help you weed out sensitivities and food cravings.
Yeah.
For myself, this 10 days of no artificial sweetener was of real benefit to me because I realized how reliant I am on artificial sweetener, and this has kept me now more aware of my usage of artificial sweetener and trying to make it so that it's not a daily occurrence, or it's not in all, that I don't need to put it in my coffee all the time, I don't need to have dessert all the time, that it needs to be more of a treat and not so much of a daily thing.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective with the sweetener thing, now I actually had a couple of energy drinks while we were doing carnivore too, so I had sweetener. You didn't have any. I didn't have sweetener in my coffee, but I did have a couple of times when I had energy drinks just because I just felt like I needed a pep, to keep going. So, but I did realize this week, because we stopped last week.
Not very long ago, just about 3 days ago.
Yeah, about 3 days ago. I did notice that it's no big deal for me to be honest, I think the whole sweetener thing for me is just a habit. And it wasn't that difficult when we weren't doing the sweetener, but now that I can do it, I'm doing it again.
You really do have to be aware
Yeah.
of your usage of certain things. And not just sweetener. Also, I think it makes you more aware of maybe some red light foods you've got. Like for me personally, it's nuts, and not just nuts in general, mostly pecans. Pecans and I are like besties. We're besties, and it's sometimes a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
So it's made me more aware of maybe some foods that I'm including too often into my diet that I really don't need to be.
Right.
And also, I think that we've also learned that we need to sometimes have a balance with our vegetables.
Yeah, that's true. We kind of, with the whole carnivore thing, it kind of helped us. We kind of started looking at vegetables a little bit differently.
Yeah. And I think it helped me at least to realize maybe certain vegetables that bother me gastrointestinally. Mm-hmm. So when you're cutting all of those out, And then when you start reintroducing things, it kind of gives you a gauge of maybe some vegetables that you do better with than others.
Good point. And I noticed that since we started back, we're eating vegetables, at least I am, but I'm not eating...
I'm eating less.
I'm eating less.
Of them.
And it just feels like that... It feels like somehow mentally I've made this adjustment in my brain.
Which also helps you control your carbs.
Yes.
You know, because if you are still including some vegetables, you know, for some variety or whatever, then, you know, but you're not making that the entire part of your diet.
Right.
Because, you know, you really don't need vegetables. Honestly, you don't. Because your body does not digest fiber.
No, you know, that's going to be really controversial.
Yes, it is going to be controversial.
That's controversial.
But...
Okay, but...
You can cut that out if you'd like.
No, I'm not going to cut it out. It's fine. We said it's here.
Realistically, fiber is a hot button topic.
Yes,
so
it is.
Feel free to do all of your own research.
Yes, because again, we're talking about our experiment, what we did, and why we decided to do that kind of stuff. We're not advocating that you...
No, this is strictly our experience.
Just our experience
with carnivore. And like we said, it was 10 days. It was not a full month. Yeah. It was... basically just trying it.
Yeah.
I wanted to try
it. So that kind of leads us to the next and I think the last point. We would do carnivore again.
Yes.
But what we would do is we would try to incorporate all the stuff that we learned in the previous 4 points. We would incorporate all that stuff and hopefully maybe we can even take it out a little bit longer. Because I know, you know, we stopped because of some... I really think it was just because of some really severe keto flu symptoms, but you know, with what we learned, we also know that keto flu, those symptoms would have passed,
right? But
we just didn't continue to go through. Yeah.
Well, and there are a lot of people who alternate between the ketogenic diet and carnivore. Dr. Ken Berry does that. There's quite a few people on YouTube who do that, and they, you know, ketovore, like they hybridize it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's personal choice, but it does help you learn about your food sensitivities. Mm-hmm. So if you are still having some chronic conditions, some chronic inflammation, maybe some skin issues, or other things that maybe you're wondering if something that you're still eating is bothering you, it's a good way to take it all the way down to rock bottom.
Right.
And give your body a chance to decide what is bothering it. And then when you slowly add back in those foods, it might give you some kind of gauge as to what's bothering you.
Right.
So yeah, I would totally do it again. But like CJ said, it would be under a more parameters.
Yeah, we'd be more prepared. We do
more tracking, more testing.
Right, we do all the more testing before we start, so we have some really good baseline numbers.
Right, we need to have a baseline to see how it is affecting us with actual data and numbers, and not just based on how we feel.
How we feel, right? Exactly.
So yeah.
So those are the 5 takeaways we got from the carnivore diet.
Yes.
And we're back to doing keto.
Mm-hmm.
But
like you mentioned before, it has given me a new light on a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I look at what I'm eating a little bit differently now that we've done the carnivore experiment. I look at vegetables differently. I look at just
sweetener differently.
Sweetener differently. Tracking my food differently. I'm more aware, more conscious of things. So that maybe I had kind of gotten a little off on just doing keto. Because we've done keto for quite some time. And it's easy to get off. And
you get used to it. And, you know, I think sometimes you start slowly adding more carbs than maybe you had when you originally started the diet. So I think it helps keep you more aware of carbs.
And some of you guys track religiously all the time. And I applaud you guys for doing that. Because some of you guys do that. I read comments. I watch other videos, and people have it down to the grams,
eyeball.
Right, how much they're eating, and we necessarily haven't done that all the time. I did that a lot. I've been kind of coming and going, and so this actually that has helped me, you know, in that respect to kind of get back to tracking,
to being more aware of what you're eating.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it for this week. That's our carnivore takeaways. If you've experimented with carnivore,
Or if you're interested in carnivore, if you've heard things or read things, or
we'd like to hear them in the comments.
Yeah.
What we'll try to do maybe also is put some links to some information that we kind of resources that we kind of watched before we started, and just things like that. But again, this was just a personal choice experiment that we did. No particular reason, just wanted to try it.
Just cause.
Yeah. So if you're new here, this is our Keto Conversation segment that we do every Wednesday. We do new recipes on Sundays. So if you're new here, welcome to our channel. Consider subscribing. Don't forget to hit
the notification bell
so you know when we upload new content.
Because sometimes YouTube will not notify you if you've not hit that bell.
I noticed over the weekend that a lot of my notification bells are off.
Well, and YouTube's having a problem right now, so sometimes even if you are subscribed and you're not getting the notifications, you'll have to unsubscribe and resubscribe and hit the notification bell. That's what I've heard. So.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching CJ's Keto Kitchen. We appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Peace.
We haven't done that in a long time.
No. We're off our peace game.
Gotten all sophisticated.